In a world where fantasy football has taken over the land, two unlikely heroes will arise. They call themselves the Fantasy Football Apocalypse. But who are they?
Trent and Jeremy. Trent and Jeremy. Trent and Jeremy. Trent and Jeremy. Trent and Jeremy, yes, they are the boys. When it comes to fantasy advice, they got the noise. One's a little loud, and he's far from cautious. His voice alone will turn your stomach nauseous. MC number 2, well, it's just not that simple. Some would even question that he's borderline mental. These two combined will try to be funny, but their main goal is to try to make you money.
Oh, yes! Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It is week 15 of the Fantasy Football Apocalypse. I'm Trent Scott, joined by Jeremy Scott.
Hello, everybody. It is a bittersweet fantasy week. Sweet for some, bitter for others. We got the playoffs going. This is literally, it feels like Christmas. Pun intended, Trent?
Well, that depends on, how into the Christmas spirit you are.
I don't know if we can say Christmas on the air.
Excuse me, holiday spirit!
Speaking of political correctness, Tom Brady has officially endorsed Donald Trump. Did you see that?
I did. He said he supports his friends.
He just straight up won Trump the election. Oh, that's hilarious. But back to what matters. Fantasy football, boys and girls, if any listen. We got a big week this week. There's a lot of good matchups. FanDuel particularly, not necessarily at the quarterback position, but we'll get there. But I wanted to make a point, but first I'm going to let Trent give his 2 cents on what he wanted to talk about before we start our picks.
Yeah, so we always like to talk a little bit before we get into our picks this week, and I was thinking, it's fantasy playoff season, and we've talked a lot this year the fact that we're in the same league, and I know most of you guys listening are in our league as well, and I am now into the semifinals of our league, and I kind of wanted to talk about how I've made it there, because for all intents and purposes, Jeremy, you'll agree with this, I should not still be alive right now.
You're right, I can't disagree.
But the way I have done that, the way I am still in this thing, I'm going to go slot by slot through my roster, Jeremy. You tell me what all these guys have in common, okay? So, this is my starting lineup for the semifinals of the fantasy season. Alex Smith at quarterback, Danny Amendola and Doug Baldwin are my wide receivers. My running backs are Denard Robinson and Bryce Brown. My tight end is Delaney Walker. My flex is Jordan Reed. And my kicker, Dan Bailey, defense, Minnesota.
Now that you put it that way, Trent, and as much as I hate to give you credit for anything, I will give you a little bit of credit for this. A lot of those picks sound very familiar, like picks that we have picked on this show many times.
Well, not only that, the larger issue I'm getting at, I drafted exactly one of those guys. I drafted Delaney Walker in the 8th round. Every single other one of them was not acquired via trade. No. Every single one of them was acquired via free agency.
See, the story on his is a required free agency. Mine are always on trading. But it's much more fun if you sit around. And here's the point. Trent's been active. And I stay very active. I trade more than anybody every year. But you have to stay active and take the risk to pay it off. I mean, look at Trent, case in point, with a little bit of luck. And nobody knows better than how luck works in fantasy than me. Compared to last year, Trent knows what I'm talking about. But it's so important to stay active and allocate your free agency money correctly. So good job, Trent. I will give you a pat on the back for that.
All of those don't even include the best free agent I picked up all year, which was Thomas Rawls, who got hurt last year but had been arguably the best running back in football for the month before that.
Those of you, absolutely. But those of you who have been listening to this show, there's another running back that has emerged onto the scene that I love more than Trent loves Rawls.
I don't think that's humanly possible. But go ahead.
Shoelace Robinson. Denard Robinson is back. Our listeners from last year know how much I love Denard Robinson. And hopefully we hear about him later on in the show. But before we start, I wanted to point out one thing, Trent.
What's that?
I'm going to name 5 names who I want you to think back to preseason. I want you to think back to week 1 before it even started. All of these names are below 7,000, and a couple are below 6,000. Are you ready, Trent?
I'm ready.
DeMarco Murray, Dez Bryant, Eddie Lacy, C.J. Anderson, and my personal favorite, Latavius Murray. Can you believe that? That is just astounding to me. And that just shows you how fantasy, like, you have to stay up to date, because if you stick with your roster, you're screwed. I mean,
Well,
if you had...
To further that point, I mean, we talked about who I'm starting, but look who's on my bench. C.J. Anderson was a first-round pick. Randall Cobb was a second-round pick. DeMarco Murray was a second-round pick.
Or first.
Yeah, and Matt Ryan was regarded as like a top 8 quarterback, and Marshawn Lynch, granted he's hurt, but he was a first-round pick as well. All those guys are on
Lacy
my bench.
Was first.
Yeah.
Lacy was first. I mean, Latavius pretty much went top 3. That's just crazy, man. Fantasy is insane. But look, Ted Ginn Jr. is relevant. Ted Ginn. He sucks so bad. He can't even catch a ball. But Cam Newton, I guess, is just that good.
All right, so are we ready? Well, I guess let's real quick. Last thing before we get in this week's picks, Jeremy. Let's review last week, shall we?
Absolutely, my friend. I ended up winning, which Trent did pick Baldwin, which was an incredible pick. What did he end up with again?
32, as he had 3 more touchdowns, making it 8 touchdowns in 3 weeks.
Unbelievable. But anyway, so Doug Baldwin continues to do his thing. Despite that, I did end up winning, as I had a more solid, consistent approach. I had Lamar Miller go for 20, Allen Hurns had 19, Cobb 16, and tight end Benjamin Watson had 14, Trent.
Yeah, I mean, tight end is really where the game was decided. As you won by 8, your tight end had 14, mine had 1, because Charles Clay sucks.
Yeah, Charles Clay's pretty bad. He really has been a disappointment the second 2/3 of the season. Let's put it that way. But that puts us back at even, my friend, 7-7. Going into week 15, we have what do you want to do the show until? Maybe the AFC NFC Championship games?
We'll figure that out, as we'll have to obviously figure out some additional content to go with the playoffs, because there's just not enough games to fill an entire show. So we'll kind of have to figure out what content we have. But
yeah, we'll do the first 2 weeks for sure.
Yeah.
I'd imagine. But the championship games may be a little bit tough. But we'll have an update, prior to the end of the season. So anyway, Trent, let's give the people what they want. Start us off with the picks. Actually, I won.
You won. You start us off. Who's your quarterback this week, Jeremy?
So, someone who I'm slowly growing to hate. Ryan Tannehill. Quarterbacks are pretty slim this week due to injuries and matchups. Trent did get the better one, I will admit that. I actually wanted to pick his pick, but due to our format of our selections, I had to go with Tannehill. Now, enough with the bashing. Tannehill has proven that he can have a good game every now and then. He did decent last week. He had 15 points. Playing San Diego this week, they're a terrible defense, and their offense is struggling mightily, so the Dolphins should have some chances on offense, but the Dolphins are just extremely pass-happy for some reason. Tannehill has thrown 41 times and 58 times in his last 3 games, so he's got a lot of opportunity to put points on the board. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you're not going to hear me say anything great about Tannehill, because I think he's a middle-of-the-road guy. He's not bad. He's just not really what I would say good either. But like you said, it's a decent matchup. They're playing the Chargers, who are pretty bad. So he should get the opportunity to have a good game. So if you're going to have to use Tannehill, this is the week to do it.
But will he have a good game is the question, Trent. We have no idea. All right, give us your quarterback pick of the week.
So my quarterback pick of the week, I've been riding him the last 2 weeks. I just mentioned I'm playing him in my season-long team as well. Alex Smith. This week, the Chiefs continue their race to the playoffs. They are taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who are absolutely horrible. They are the fourth most points given up to fantasy quarterbacks. Not to mention, Alex Smith ran for 40 yards last week, which we've seen him do 2 or 3 times a year, it feels like. So in addition to having a good passing matchup, he also has the chance to run for 20 or 30 yards every given week. So I like Alex Smith.
I do too. He's got an excellent matchup. He's cheap. I will be using him in FanDuel personally on quite a few teams. Here's an interesting fact, Trent. He hasn't had less than 13 in the last 5 to 11 weeks. That's pretty amazing.
I agree. And
I'll let that settle in for a minute.
I'm hoping he keep it up for just 2 more weeks. That's all I need. 2 more weeks.
He's going to break his something. But I do like the pick. I think Alex Smith is a great pick this week.
All right, so then let's move on to running backs. And if one Dolphin wasn't good enough for you, Jeremy, how about a second?
Yes, I got to go with Lamar Miller because San Diego's defense is so bad, and specifically their run D. So that makes me a little bit leery of Tannehill also, but would be nice if Tannehill threw a touchdown to Lamar Miller, huh? But
that would be great for you.
Lamar Miller, for some reason, it just seems like they don't like him in Miami. I don't know what the deal is. Dan Campbell likes him, but for some reason they just refuse to commit to the guy. Although he continues to produce over and over and over. I mean, I don't know what he's averaging yards per carry, but a friend of mine wanted me to debate and shoot him an email. I haven't done it, but I'll do it. Anyway, Lamar Miller is the real deal. I don't know if he has a future in Miami. I really don't think he does because for some reason it's not a fit. But he just continues to produce over and over, and I think he's going to get double-digit carries again.
To answer your question, he's averaging 5.1 yards per carry this year, which is very, very good.
Yeah, that's insane. Like, okay, well, I'll tell you the story. A friend of mine was saying how awful Lamar Miller is. I'm like, I don't understand how you can legitimately say that. And I'm sure he's listening to this show, so I might as well say it on here. But so like Trent said, he's averaging 5.1 yards a carry on an entire season, which is incredible. He's been given virtually no opportunities to be the guy and succeed. When they commit to him, he has produced. I mean, the guy is amazing. If he can go somewhere that will commit to him, he'll be a first round. You know, he won't get drafted in the first round, but he will be an RB1. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, we're 14 games into the season, and he only has 151 carries. So he's averaging just over 10 carries a game, which is just not enough for him to really perform at the level that he's capable of performing at, because they're just not giving him the ball. This week, though, like you said, they're playing a bad team. Hopefully, they'll have a second-half lead, and hopefully they'll be running the ball. But that's really the main concern is usage. Yeah,
I agree. Now, from what I've read on multiple occasions, is Lamar Miller is a very mild-mannered. He doesn't have an outgoing, strong personality, and that's kind of been a part of it. But hey, Lamar Miller is a Christian, so you got to draft him. You know the rules.
There you go.
To another one of our listeners, he dropped the most famous Christian in the league, Russell Wilson. Dropped him. Probably 6 or 7 weeks ago. And I dare you to look at Russell Wilson's game log between now and then.
I mean, because I, as a proud Doug Baldwin owner, I am fully aware of how well the offense is clicking in Seattle.
I text him on regularly to remind him of what he did. So, anyway, let's get on with the show, Trent. Give us your running back pick of the week.
Yes, my running back pick of the week. Jeremy, for long-time listeners of our show, going back to last year, actually, a name that will be very, very familiar Denard Shoelace Robinson.
Shoelace!
He's back, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
TJ Yeldon sprained his ankle. Looks almost certainly to be out for this game. Denard in mop-up duty last week, 15 carries for 87 yards. Looked really good. And now this week, the Jaguars are playing the Atlanta Falcons, who have given up the most points to opposing running backs. I am all in on Shoelace. I'm all in on him in FanDuel, and I'm all in on him for my playoff hopes in our league.
Do I even need to say anything? Denard Robinson is one of my favorite players in the NFL because when given a chance, he's a poor man's Lamar Miller. Anytime he's given a chance, he produces. 14 carries for 75 yards and a touchdown, 1 catch for 12 yards. And that was all in pretty much one half, if I'm not mistaken. Gonna do it again. Atlanta is the worst in the league against the run, so he's gonna produce. Love the pick. Get Denard Robinson.
All right, so Jeremy, let's move on then. Your second running back this week will be who?
David Johnson. There were questions on whether or not his injury was significant. It's not. He's also had an extra, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to rest. So that's going to help tremendously. They're talking about Ellington possibly coming back, but last time he came back, Arians had him on a snap count anyway, so I'm not worried about it. And David Johnson has proved that he's a legitimate running back. He's young. I think he's the future in Arizona, and I think he does well again this week. He also gets a lot of catches, which I like a ton.
Yeah, David Johnson, now that the backfield situation has been cleaned out, Chris Johnson's on IR, Andre Ellington is hurt, like you were just talking about. He's finally gotten a chance to actually play the last 2 weeks, and he's been very good. 99 yards rushing and 92 yards rushing. Plus, like you said, you combine it with the catches. He's been in the high teens and scoring both times. It's a decent matchup. Philly's not particularly good or bad against the run, but just on usage alone, Johnson is the guy that you have to look at this week.
Well, moving on. Let's keep it simple. Trent, give us your second running back.
My second running back, I picked him last week. He scored a touchdown. He should have an even bigger role in the offense this week. James White. LeGarrette Blount is now out for the season, so the Patriots are left with just Brandon Bolden and James White at running back. I would expect White to be... They've said Brandon Bolden was going to be the starter, but I would not be surprised at all to see White wind up with more touches. He's a pass catcher. I really like the opportunity White has this week.
I hate that I've agreed with your first 3 picks, but James White, I do like it. His value is rising and continuing to rise. If you watch him play, I don't know if Trent's ever, watched him on TV.
Oh, yes, I have.
Because he hates the Patriots. But James White is good, man. He really impressed me last week. He's very athletic, and he made a big catch. It was out of bounds, but it was an extremely athletic catch. But yeah, I like James White a lot. The only problem is if they get up big against Tennessee, I'm pretty sure Bolden will take over Blunt's role with running. But who knows?
All right, so let's move on to wide receivers then, Jeremy. Who's your wide receiver of the week?
I'm going to ride the Alex Smith coattail, and I'm going to go with Jeremy Maclin. Honestly, I don't know why he's under 7,000, but he is. Baltimore is bottom 5 against the pass, and they're very good against the run, so naturally they're going to game plan to throw the ball. I think that benefits Smith, and more specifically Maclin, who's been doing very well as of late. So I like it. He's got 3 touchdowns in his last 3 games.
Like you said, I picked Alex Smith as my quarterback, so of course I'm going to like his top wide receiver. Maclin is a guy I've picked a few times this year on this show. Continues to be underrated. I think Jeremy Maclin's a fantastic football player, and the matchup this week just screams to play him.
Screaming. You can hear it. I'm going to switch it over to you now, Trent. Who is your wide receiver pick of the week?
So my wide receiver pick of the week, kind of an interesting one, I think. Brandon Cooks. The Saints are playing the Lions The Lions have been playing better as of late, but they don't scare me. The game is in New Orleans. Brandon Cooks, everyone hoped he was going to be like a top 10 receiver this year. That hasn't happened, but he has actually been pretty good, especially here later in the season. Now, he had a bad game last week, but the week before that he was over 100 yards and had a touchdown. I think Cooks can have a pretty good game this week, so I'm going with him.
He could. I mean, it seems like Detroit's defense has been playing pretty solid lately, but I mean, I don't know. I guess it's high risk, high reward, if you think of it that way. I'm not as excited about Cooks. I just don't trust him. If you look at his game log, there's a bunch of holes in there. So, I don't know. I feel like there's better options. Finally, some disagreement.
All right, well then let's keep it moving, Jeremy. Who's going to be your second wide receiver this week?
Danny Amendola. There are rumors that Edelman comes back, but from what I've seen, it's probably going to be week 16 or 17 or playoffs even. And honestly, there's no reason for the Patriots to rush him back. So I can't imagine them rushing him back this week. Amendola has filled in nicely. He hasn't had less than 6 catches since he's been filled in. So I'm going to ride that coattail. And Tennessee has their secondary is 22 in the league. So like the matchup.
Yeah, a few things I'm worried about with Amendola. Like you said, the just shocking potential that Julian Edelman could possibly play this week. I don't know why they would do that, but he did practice last Friday, and it seems pretty clear that they want to get him back into some game action before the playoffs. I would be stunned if it was this week. Now, the Titans are terrible, which is normally a good thing for matchup purposes, but Amendola is entirely dependent on his catches, so the Patriots are almost certainly going to build a big lead in this game, which means they'll probably stop throwing the ball late. So Amendola is going to have to do his work early, because if he doesn't score early, he's not going to score at all, which kind of happened last week. But I think he'll be all right, but there are a couple of red flags.
Yep, I feel like James White and Amendola are pretty much in the same boat this week. But Mariota's legit, so let's see what he can do. If he can put up some points, James and or Amendola will both do well. Moving on, Trent, who is your wide receiver 2 pick of the week?
My second wide receiver this week, part of this just scorching hot Jacksonville Jaguars offense, Allen Hurns, man. Can you believe what the Jaguars have done? 80 points the last 2 weeks.
Crazy.
Now, Allen Hurns missed the first of those 2 games, but last week in his return effort, over 100 yards and a touchdown. Now, they're playing the Falcons, who technically, statistically, have a pretty good pass defense, but it's only because their run defense is so bad. But I think this is just going to be a full-out assault from the Jaguars' offense. I really think the Jaguars are going to have a great game, and I think Hurns does well.
I would like to say it's going to be a high-scoring game, but Matt Ryan is so bad. Like, I am just shocked at how poor he's playing this second half. Now, I've said it 100 times, and if you know me, odds are I've said it before. Matt Ryan starts off the year super hot and then sucks the second half. This is the worst sucking he's ever had, Trent. What the heck is going on there?
As a Matt Ryan draftee, I am full aware of his struggles. I cut ties with him 3 weeks ago, and I have since started Brock Osweiler once and Alex Smith twice. And going forward for the rest of the season, Alex Smith is my starter for however long I'm left in the playoffs. I don't know what happened. He's 29 years old. He's in his 8th season. This is not the time people get worse. This should be his prime years, and for some reason he has just collapsed this season.
It's like he's got writer's block, but with football. He can't throw the... I mean, I don't know what the deal is. He just looks horrible. Somehow, though, Julio is still having a good season. One more side note before we continue, and I'll give my 2 cents on Hurns. Speaking of quarterbacks, I have Rivers. I'm in the semifinals, and I'm strongly considering maybe flat out dropping Rivers and picking up Bortles, or even someone else, but Bortles or somebody. What do you think, Trent?
How is Bortles still available?
This league is not as good as the league you and I are in. I've literally finished top 3 in every year. I've been in it for 3 years. Well, 2 years. No, 3 years. Anyway. All right, Alan Hearns, I love the Jaguars. The problem I see is the Jags getting up big, which is crazy. But their defense is so bad, it should still be a game. I could see Hearns having another big week. Allen Robinson definitely needs to bounce back because he had a very poor game. So it'll be interesting. I would say the odds are more in his favor than not. So he's Katniss.
Wow, that was just excellent use of the English language there, Jeremy. What a display.
No, Katniss.
No, I got it. I was talking about before that.
Oh, I don't remember what I said. Bro, it's a morning show. We are always half asleep in the morning. All right. Would you like to pass the torch back to me, Trent?
All right, Katniss. Who is going to be your tight end this week?
PETA. I'm going with Richard Rodgers. He is actually turning into a pretty legitimate tight end. I know he only had 1 catch last week, but it was for a touchdown. He's kind of quietly emerging onto the scene now. I don't know with McCarthy if that's going to be the same because he is calling the plays there now, and I'm pretty sure Cobb is going to be more of a beneficiary. But what I do like is the Oakland Raiders are horrible against tight ends. If you watch them dating back all season, look at all the tight ends that have gone off against him. And I like that potential. And he's only $5,500, so I'm going with Richard Rodgers this week.
Yeah, not really much to argue about here. I've very much expressed my frustration with tight ends this year. They killed me again last week.
That's the only reason I've been able to catch up is the tight ends.
Yeah, I would like to. At some point, I think I'm going to add up what my record would be against you if we weren't picking tight ends. I don't think we would be tied. Let's just put it that way.
Dude, what are the odds? 7-7. We got we possibly got 4 weeks left. I guess let's put it this way: if we're tied, we'll go to the semifinals, or the AFC NFC Championship.
We'll have to figure out something.
Yeah, but anyway, Trent, close us off and give us your final tight end pick.
All right, my final tight end pick, Jeremy. You used him successfully last week. Hopefully, he can keep it up. I talked about his fellow running mate Brandon Cooks earlier. I'm going with Benjamin Watson here. Pretty much everything I said about Cooks applies to Watson. The Lions aren't great, and this game is in New Orleans. I think the Saints have a pretty good chance to have one of their better games of the year this week.
Yes, I actually like Watson more than I like Cooks, believe it or not. But here's something interesting about your picks, Trent. You picked Brandon Cooks and Watson, and Denard Robinson and Allen Hearns.
Yep, 2 sets of teammates.
Would be a shame if the Jags and New Orleans Saints combined for 0 points.
That would be a disaster for me, yeah.
Oh, that would be awesome. But anyway, Watson is a cheap FanDuel pick, and I like it. I do hate that I've agreed on so many of your picks this week, but it seems like there are a lot of good matchups.
Jeremy, you're just finally starting to catch up to my level, that's all.
Okay.
Even though we're tied, so we're exactly the same.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, same as usual, we appreciate you guys listening to us. We got a maximum 5 shows left, more realistically probably 4, but I plan on going 3 and 1. So anyway, that's where we're at. Wow, just completely off today, Trent.
That excellent use of the English language I was talking about a minute ago. You're just on fire, buddy.
Don't worry, I'm learning Spanish in Rosetta Stone. We can have an all-Spanish episode soon. Anyway, we appreciate you guys. If you have questions, we know you'll text us because you refuse to do it on social media, so just keep texting us. And we will see you next week.